Uh-huh. Okay, I'm gonna hit record on here. You do know this is going on YouTube, right? Welcome to episode 53 of the Civil War Breakfast Club. Tonight, I'm joined by my co-host, the guy who has had... Okay, fuck. I fucked that up. I had it written down and I fucked it.
You even wrote it out and you still can't. Okay, well, that's great. This is a great start.
So
We're
bad.
a great start
So
today.
bad. All right. Okay. So we'll just edit that one out. Okay. Welcome to episode 53 of the Civil War Breakfast Club. Tonight, I'm joined by my co-host, the guy who started off on this podcast as just Darren. By episode 2, he was the artist formerly known as Darren. And just last week, he became Sic Semper Darrenus. And I am just Mary.
Oh, you're not just Mary. What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, it's a lovely day in the neighborhood. It really, really is. A little hot, a little steamy. We're on day 25 of living on the sun here.
Yes, I know it is. I hear about it from you every day. Well, what's it like there? It's hot again. It fucking sucks.
It is a full
hot here too, Darren. It's hot here too.
Well, this is Darren's problem. Okay, we're talking about me now.
I know. And if Darren has a problem.
Okay, well, all right. Well, that's fine. I mean, I'm on like third box of Gold Bond powder today, but no one seems to care. Fine. It's all good. It's all good. But hey, what's going on?
Females have similar. Just we'll leave it at that.
Oh, come on. That's where we were going with this, but okay, off we go. So anyway, with that Civil War.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
How's it going besides being hot?
Oh, it's fabulous. It couldn't be better. Soft serve and sunshine. Everything is good.
Soft serve from the old DQ?
The old DQ. You got it. The old Blizzards.
You getting your discount?
I haven't been on a DQ in a while, as a matter of fact. But
geez, anyway, I gave you all those discount cards.
I know they are. You sell eBay. They're all gone. Anyway, but no, so I thought it was a good podcast last week. You mentioned the Sic Semper Darrenus. We talked about John Wilkes Booth and the gang last week. We had a really good Facebook Live. And I guess we will have to get back into the whole Civil War thing. We had a lot of fun talking about that with Dave Taylor last week.
Yeah.
But we're going to go back into some battles and have some fun with this. And so it's good to be back talking battles again.
It is.
Yeah, I love talking about the conspiracy and the assassination.
Me too.
But we got some business to do, Mary, some business to do.
We do. But first of all, a huge thank you to Dave Taylor for joining us. We will definitely be having him back to talk more about probably the other conspirators and just the assassination and conspiracy as a whole. He was a really, really fun guest to have on. So we were very happy he joined us. So yes, as you said, down to business, which means, what are you drinking? Look at me being polite and asking you first.
I didn't hear a sir, but in any case.
What are you drinking, sir?
Oh, wow.
So
I am drinking. So I'm drinking Devil's Purse. It's called Pearl Cutter from here in Cape Cod.
Ooh.
And generally, I have no coffee mug. They're all put away, so I will have to go with my can today. So what about yourself? What are you drinking?
I am drinking Good Monster by Collective Arts Brewing. It is an 8% IPA, so we'll see how I'm doing at the end of this episode. But I am drinking it out of the Ride with the Winner mug, which it's impossible to show it on video here, but these were sent to us. We both have one sent to us by Leroux Design, which he's got a shop on Redbubble. And there's actually, I think he's got the Oliver Otis Howard t-shirt on there now that he's selling.
You mean that the Mary exclusive?
God, stop it.
Yeah, so what are we talking about today? What's going on today?
We are headed back to the Western Theater to talk Battle of Richmond, Kentucky. And it is a battle.
Kentucky? That was Richmond, Virginia. Oh, crap. I'm kidding.
Are you ill-prepared?
Oh, well, we're doing Five Forks again. I'm just going to go watch some pop culture now.
Oh, no.
But you are right, Mayor. We were talking about the Battle of Richmond, Kentucky, which August 29th, August 30th, 1862. Did you know it was fought at the same exact time as Second Manassas? Speaking of Virginia?
I was just about to comment on that it's fought at the exact same time, which is probably one of the reasons that it gets overshadowed, because I'm thinking Kirby Smith, Robert E. Lee. Yeah, you're going to talk about Robert E. Lee a little bit more. The whole Kentucky campaign really does get overshadowed by what's happening in the Eastern Theater. Mm-hmm. But, as we've discussed on our Facebook Live a couple times and on this podcast, proximity to the major media outlets, which were in the East, are one of the reasons why the Eastern Theater battles sometimes get more press. But all battles matter, as we said on this podcast. And, the one thing that we want to really hit home with this Battle of Richmond, Kentucky, is that it's another important battle in the Civil War, especially in the Western Theater, because it's starting to show how events are going to play out in the Western Theater.
Well, we were joking before about the Kentucky versus the Richmond thing and the Virginia thing, and that's kind of in a nutshell the issue with the Civil War sometimes. Is this is fought the same weekend as Second Manassas, but again, Kentucky was just as important as Virginia in a lot of different ways. So real quick, Kentucky, this battle that we're going to talk about, the Battle of Richmond, really could be considered the invasion of Richmond instead of a battle, because that's kind of what it was. Kentucky is an important state for the Union and the Confederacy. It's a border state. It is loaded with all kinds of supplies, livestock, KFCs everywhere. And it's also loaded with riverways to transport men, material all over the place. And like a lot of the border states, by 1862, it's kind of turned into a simmering dumpster fire of a state. It's full of turmoil. And, it's a slave state, but it's interesting because it's definitely sympathizes with the Confederates and their friends in the South. There's no question. And it's got full of Virginia transplants and descendants in it. And it's a very Southern sympathetic state. But herein lies the rub, Mary, is the money aspect. And Kentucky had an extremely strong commerce relationship with the North because of their proximity to that Ohio River, right? So Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, the slave owners in Kentucky, they wanted to stay in the Union because of these economic ties with the North. So they were willing to just forego it because of money. And that was a big, big deal. Now, the governor of Kentucky, one of my favorite names, his name is Barrett McGoffin, which just automatically reminds you of Bacon McMuffin, but that's another story. And
why do I get a feeling we're going to see him sitting in McDonald's
every time? But he's from a place called Harrodsburg, Kentucky. Now, he is extremely pro-Southern, right? He actually called 2 special sessions in the state to secede from the Union, and the state chose to remain neutral. He just couldn't get the votes. And after Sumter was fired on, he tried, but he could not get the state to secede. Eventually, Kentucky ends up in June of 1861 electing themselves a very pro-Union state legislature. So it's going to cause within about a year McGoffin to quit and resign, and he's going to get replaced by a pro-Union governor named James F. Robinson. Now, and what's interesting was you were saying before, they promised to stay neutral, right? But one of the things they do is this pro-Union legislature authorizes raising a pro-Union home guard, kind of like we did Missouri a few weeks ago, but in reverse. Yep. So in 1861, in August, they established a fort called Camp Dick Robinson in central Kentucky. Just like saying the name.
What an amazing name. Was that the fort that was located next to the Bang Barn?
I think it might have been. You're getting a 2-for-1 coupons, I think, if you went there. Fridays, but not Saturdays. But it was focused on recruiting and training that pro-Union home guard. But this right off the bat is going to violate that neutrality, because they're talking about they want to be neutral, but now they're raising a home guard to protect the economic pro-Union sympathies now within the government of the state and a pro-Southern populist. That's what it comes down to.
And but the Confederates had their own called the State Guards. Now, another interesting thing about Kentucky is that it is literally brother against brother. This is a state where that seems to happen more and more. Another interesting thing too is you look at kind of the geography of the state, where, in the South and the West the culture was a lot more like the Deep South. There's a lot more slave owners in that area. Tobacco was the cash crop in that area, and it accounted for 1/4 of the nation's tobacco output, and hemp is also grown there, just like in Missouri. And the north and east of Kentucky they're the ones that are a little bit more aligned with the North. So they're ideologically and economically starting to move away from slavery. Their crops are moving towards grains and cereals, which are a little less labor intensive. Tobacco and hemp are very labor intensive crops. So that's why they needed the slaves, but Northern Kentucky's also getting into horse breeding. Like in Northern Kentucky, modern day, I shouldn't say modern day because this is still modern, but today you have like Kentucky Horse Park. So horse breeding's becoming popular, and was manufacturing, which manufacturing is more of a northern thing compared to the South, right? So you have this kind of, I guess, this economical, geographical divide that is happening, but you also have the brother against brother aspect. For instance, like Henry Clay, his grandsons are living in Kentucky. 3 of them fight for the Union and 4 fight for the Confederacy. So you have these families that are literally divided. Same with Crittenden, who was a statesman. He's got 1 son fighting for the North and 1 son fighting for the South. So it's very much this. Now, this happens in all states, but for some reason with Kentucky, just because of how divided they are, we're talking about a state that part of them goes rogue and they eventually get accepted into the Confederacy as the 13th state in the Confederacy. They have a star on the Confederate flag, but they're not really like, you don't really think of them when you think of the Confederate States of America.
No, because there were Abraham Lincoln and Davis, for that matter, but Lincoln really wanted to keep Kentucky in the Union.
He did.
By
the
way, it's good to see Lincoln back after last week's Booth episode, by the way. So welcome back, Abe.
Yeah.
Good to talk to you again. So glad he made it back.
Hope the play was good. Too soon.
Okay. Wow. But Abraham Lincoln, he has that quote. He says, "I hope to have God on my side, but I must have Kentucky."
Exactly.
That was right. So he knows he has it. Jefferson Davis, same deal. He also wants to keep Kentucky as a Confederate state. Now, what's interesting about old Jeff Davis and Abe Lincoln, where were they born? Kentucky. Right? About 100 miles from each other, about a year apart, I think. I think they were pretty close. But
and one was born into more of a poverty. The other was born into a very rich family as well. Like they basically had opposite upbringings, which is a lot like what you see going on in Kentucky between the North and the South of the state, right?
I don't think there's a more poor sounding place than Sinking Springs Farm. I think that's about as miserable as it possibly sounds for Lincoln.
When I was a kid, I read it as Stinking Spring, and that's what I kept calling it.
Oh, of course you did. But geography. Geographically, Kentucky is pinned right in the middle between the North and the South. They're kind of stuck in no man's land. They're in a tough spot. Now, the rebels, again, they want Kentucky for all those things we talked about, the supplies. They want another place to go. All those riverways, they can get all over the place to travel throughout the state. So what are they going to do? We're going to kind of do a little throwback. We're going to share and do a little, turn back time real quick to some other episodes.
Turn back time.
Okay, stop doing that. But what the Confederates had 3 forts right on the Tennessee, Kentucky border in 1861. One, of course, was Island Number 10, which was on the Mississippi. One was Fort Henry on the Tennessee, and the other, of course, was Fort Donelson on the Cumberland River. So by fall of 1861, Kentucky becomes a site of that the Confederacy's northern military defense, that Trans-Appalachian Confederacy, which later was called Confederate Department Number 2, as the marketing department was sleeping at the switch again with that name.
You could make so many jokes about that.
Oh, tell me about it. No question. but along the northern border of Tennessee, near that Island Number 10, the rebel troops are going to advance into Bowling Green, Kentucky. And about 30,000 guys, so a pretty good amount of people, as well as some of the other parts of the state, primarily in eastern Kentucky from Knoxville, Tennessee. They're going to take that eastern edge. Now, the Rebs are going to find themselves, for the most part, holding so many strategic places in Kentucky all of a sudden by the fall of 1861. The commander at that time was Albert Sidney Johnson, also from Kentucky. Everybody's from Kentucky today. Funny how that works out.
There's a lot of people in this when we get talking about the battle. There's a lot of people involved from Kentucky in this battle.
Yeah. And so the Union, what they want to do is they want to keep the Confederates out of there. So they're going to send troops over from Cairo, Illinois. Okay, we talked about the whole thing before with Donelson and all that. And it's going to be the Union Army of Tennessee. So the Union Army, they're going to move to a place called Paducah, Kentucky, in western Kentucky, and Smithland, which is kind of in the northeast. Now, the Union is going to control at this time, because they're going to move in the entrances to the Cumberland and Tennessee rivers. So what do they have now is a launching pad with the Navy to get into that heartland of Kentucky. So they have an opportunity, right? The Union Army of Tennessee at this time, of course, is under U.S. Grant. Yeah. So all the old friends are coming back home here. So also is Don Carlos Buell, commanding the Army of the Ohio, and he's going to move from Louisville, Kentucky to Munford, Kentucky, and they're going to control that central part of Kentucky. So by early 1862, The Union army is spread out, but they hold so many points within the state of Kentucky heading into that winter of 1862.
Yeah. Yeah. So the summer, and they have, like, as you said, they've got control over most of, like, all of Kentucky, but they've also got most of Tennessee and northern Alabama as well. And this is when Bragg and Kirby Smith are going to start to put together a little bit of a plan.
Well, they will. But just real quick, just finishing real quick about how they were the Union was setting this up. So January of 1862, our old friend George Thomas, because we were going, this is bring your old friends back episodes. They're all coming back. George Thomas is going to defeat George Crittenden at the Battle of Mill Springs. Is where Thomas gets that Rock of Mill Springs nickname, right? And it's going to be really the first significant Union victory of the war. It really is. So by fall of February 62. We mentioned before, Grant takes Fort Henry, he takes Fort Donelson. It leads to, and why it's key about this is not just the whole unconditional surrender thing. It forces Albert Sidney Johnston to completely vacate Kentucky. So almost overnight, well, not overnight, but within a couple of days, couple of months, the Confederates held a whole bunch of strongholds, strategic strongholds in Kentucky that Lincoln really wanted. And now in February of 1862, the Union controls just about all of Kentucky. And now is when Bragg gets aggravated and decides to take it back.
Yeah, he gets a little bit aggravated with it. But in between that time, though, you have the Battle of Shiloh, which almost goes the wrong way for Grant, but it ends up being a Union victory. I think we can consider it that. But yes, you have Bragg and getting a little bit annoyed. He's in Chattanooga and he's really wanting to take back Kentucky. Like they need to get Kentucky back. But the other thing that they need to consider too is that the Union are starting to go after Vicksburg. Vicksburg is becoming their target, and Bragg needs that. How do we divert them away?
No, and so what Bragg is concerned about too, not just it's all kind of the walls are kind of closing in a little bit, but Bragg, who had just replaced Pierre Gustave Dutton Beauregard, as we call him, after the Battle of Corinth, he's facing that specter of the Union controlling all of Kentucky and most of Tennessee. Now the Confederates still own that eastern sliver that's really important that goes from Chattanooga to Knoxville, to your point. So Edmund Kirby Smith, we'll talk about him. He's a commander of an army in Knoxville at this time. He's protecting a railroad and telegraph lines from that Chattanooga to Knoxville area. Now, it's a strategic, important area because that's their communication line, and you have to keep it open. Now, Smith, real quick, born in St. Augustine, Florida in 1824, U.S. Military Academy, like most of these guys are, class of 1845, and he's like they all there. He's right in the middle, 25th out of 41. He goes to class with Bernard B. Talked about him, right? Thomas Wood and Louis Hebert. So he's got some, he's got some popular names, and they usually fought in Mexico under Zachary Taylor and Winfield Scott. And he joins the Confederacy after a 3-year stint teaching math, your old job at West Point. So now,
who else taught math at West Point?
What?
You know who else taught math at West Point?
Who's that?
Oliver Otis Howard.
Oh, yes. Wow, there it is.
Yes, I got my reference.
Wow. Okay.
Everybody take a drink.
Okay. So he joins the Confederacy when the war breaks out. He gets his star on June 17th, 1861. And he fought a first Bull Run, but February of 1862, Kirby Smith assumes command of the Eastern Division of Army of Tennessee because he wants to get Kentucky back is what he really, really wants to do. So before he gets going with Bragg, he kind of does his first little, see if I can do this recon invasion with John Hunt Morgan. So he's going to send John Hunt Morgan's 2nd Kentucky Cavalry to go into central Kentucky from Sparta, Tennessee, and just do cavalry things, wreck shit, cut telegraph lines, destroy railroads, do everything they can. It's really the first hint, if you look back at hindsight, of Kirby Smith's plans, invasion. That's really what this is of Kentucky. So Morgan, he does his job. He destroys all kinds of stuff. He keeps going north, cutting all the telegraph lines. He gets to Lexington, Kentucky, gets that far up. He's going to capture hundreds of Union prisoners, but he's wise enough, unlike Earl Van Dorn, to parole them.
Yeah.
right? He's going to parole these guys. And so he's also destroying millions of dollars worth of supplies. But then he sneaks back into Tennessee. But what it shows Kirby Smith is that it can be done to get in there because you're so spread out.
Yep.
So Bragg, in August 1862 now, he's going to move his entire army to Chattanooga via the railroad. Yep. 35,000 guys on the train. It's the biggest movement of an army of all time via the railroad to this day. 35,000 guys. Trying to get a drink on that train? No way. Forget it. You know? But so in Chattanooga, this is when he has this meeting with Kirby Smith.
Yeah.
At a place called the Crutchfield House Hotel. And they want to formulate a game plan. Smith, he wants to take his troops and he wants to take them from Knoxville and he wants to go right into Kentucky. And Bragg says, you know what? Okay, I'll let you do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you 2 additional units. I'm going to give you a unit by Patrick Claiborne and a second one by Preston Smith. So this is really how it begins. So August 14th, 1862, Kirby Smith's 17,000 guys leave Knoxville. They're going to get to a place called Barbersville, Kentucky on the 18th. And they're going to chill for about 10 days and just kind of hang out and rest is what they're going to do.
And the goals with this campaign that will become the Kentucky campaign that Bragg and Kirby Smith have formulated. So they want to make the Kentucky Confederate government, they want to try and make them official, but good luck with that because, Kentucky legislature is mainly run by people who support the Union. They want to threaten the Union cities along the Ohio River. And they also want to recruit men to join the Confederate Army. Like on this little campaign that they're doing, they actually have wagons full of weapons that they think they're going to be giving to men, that they're going to recruit, which is funny. But yeah, as you said, Smith leaves Knoxville and they get up into, and I've totally forgotten the name of the town now where they were, but they were not well received. Barbersville. They were not well received there at all.
No, because again, this is a state.
It's Union.
It's Union. But they're Union because of the money, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to see them leave the Union because they're going to lose their supply base. So August 26th is when they finally get going. So Smith's going to move his army forward. It's ironically, he's going to leave 7,000 of his guys, his largest division, behind under old friend Carter Stevenson. He's going to leave them back.
Yeah.
And Smith, he's going to get deeper and deeper into the state, into the bluegrass region. And this is where John Hunt Morgan, for the most part, was. He's kind of following the same game plan that Morgan did. That's why he sent Morgan ahead to kind of lay out the land so he knows he can get there.
Mm-hmm.
So what was impressive, too, was how much they moved, considering how frigging hot it was.
Oh, and there was a drought, and just the terrain was horrible as well. But there had been a horrible drought that summer in Kentucky, and it was so hot, and it was absolutely miserable. It's a guy named Colonel John S. Scott with his cavalry. He is out in front, doing kind of the looking ahead, seeing what's going on. But it is Patrick Claiborne that is leading Kirby Smith's men into Kentucky. And Claiborne's men, they talk about how there's this one hill that they have to go up, and the horses, it's so steep that the men have to drag the artillery up the hill themselves. And it was they said it was absolute hell to do it. And like, they're also dealing with this drought. They're dealing with, like, they are not welcome at all in this state. It is quite evident that it's, it's very Union. It's very unlike, in a way, it's kind of a little bit of the opposite of what we talked about with Battle of Wilson's Creek, where, you almost had it going the other way with the bullshit that was going on there. Here, they're in Union territory, and, they show up and they have no food, and they're not going to get food. Like Claiborne's men, when they got to Barbersville, were living off green corn and green apples. Like,
it's not easy being green.
That is no, thank you.
But
no,
but Smith's making his march. I don't know if they're singing "Marching Through Kentucky" or anything like that, but they're making their march to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And the Union's going to get wind of this. I mean, they're scattered.
Yeah.
But they realize what's going on. They're going to learn of Kirby Smith's advance, And Lew Wallace, who's in charge of this area at the time, is going to begin to mass his troops on Lexington, Kentucky. He's going to blow the conch shell to try to get all the guys there the best they can. Don Carlos Buell, who happens to be marching towards Nashville at the time, probably going to the big Kenny Chesney concerts, realistically, where he's going. But he is going to order a Kentucky native by the name of William Bull Nelson. We've talked about him quite a bit, along with Brigadier General Marlon Manson and Charles Croft. We're going to talk about them a lot. He orders them to organize into a force to try and slow and hopefully stop Kirby Smith's invasion. So he's going to kind of put an army together on the fly with Scotch tape and Bondo to try to stop Kirby Smith. Now, Lew Wallace, he's going to send 3 divisions from Kentucky to Richmond, Kentucky, which is in central Kentucky, and under command by the name of a guy named William Locke. So he's from the 12th Indiana, right? And what he's going to do is he's going to send some cavalry as well by the name of James Jackson. Now, what they want to do is they kind of just want to throw a stop, kind of like what we talked about with Lew Wallace and Monocacy. They want to cover and block the entrance to the bluegrass region of Kentucky and just kind of stop them there. And what they're also going to do is they're going to take some other troops to defend the northern banks of that Kentucky River. So really what they're trying to do is just stop them. They're not going to sit there and throw them out of Kentucky or anything like that. They just want to stop them. So August 23rd, you have an initial skirmish of cavalry at a place called Big Hill, which I call Big Undulation. Just saying, okay? And it's just south of Richmond. And the Rebs under John Scott, your cavalry guy you just mentioned, are going to beat the living piss out of a guy named Leonidas Metcalf, the 7th Kentucky Cavalry. It's going to be so bad, Wallace is going to call the loss, and I quote, disgraceful. That's how bad that Metcalf's cavalry is going to get whipped up by John Scott. Now, what happens is by beating them up as bad as they do at Big Hill, okay, the Confederate cavalry has, for the most part, opened the door now to Richmond for Kirby Smith's army. So what they kind of did is they kind of road graded and cleared the path. So now Smith, that next day, can start to move. Now, on the 24th, Bull Nelson, real quick, he's a 300-pound dude. Must have been
apparently
fun to
he
ride
had
a
great
horse.
Command of swearing. Apparently he's the patron saint of this podcast.
But he's going to get on the 24th. On the 24th, he's going to get to Lexington, Kentucky to relieve Lew Wallace. Lew Wallace is going to go back to Ohio and do some more recruiting and some stuff like that. But he's going to kind of relieve him at that spot. Nelson, like I said, big boy. He hears of this previous day's cavalry butt kicking, and he immediately leaves for Richmond on a horse. So it's 30 miles away, 300-pound dude on a horse going fast for 30 miles. Just let that sink in.
Poor horse.
That's probably swearing, okay? And he also orders his troops to march as fast as possible to Richmond, Kentucky, including some that were defending that key area I mentioned before over there in Clay's Ferry on the ridge looking over the Kentucky River. So he wants them all in Richmond as fast as possible. Now, Nelson, on August 27th, don't forget, he's putting an army together. He doesn't have his own army. He has to put it together based on scrap pieces. He managed to put together 8 regiments from Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, and a couple of artillery battalions. So he puts them into 2 brigades the best he can. One is under a guy named Marlon Manson, we talked about. He's from Ohio, a former druggist from Indiana, whatever the heck that is. Okay.
Maybe his relatives sold drugs to Marilyn Manson.
Maybe he sold hemp in
also
Kentucky.
From Ohio.
420, right? And the other one is to mention Charles Croft. Now, Croft from Terre Haute, Indiana, the home of Indiana State University, home of the great Larry Bird, by the way, just saying. Croft is a active Freemason, an active Knights Templar. He's someone who's really active in that field. So many of these troops they're going to run into, though, when you put an army together quick, are going to be green. And that's going to be an issue, especially getting to Richmond. Half the guys don't know how to march. They don't know how to do the wheel maneuvers. They just don't know where to go. That's a big problem.
This is like what we see a year prior at First Manassas and the battle that's about to happen in the east of Second Manassas.
Well, I can picture someone, left face and they all turn right. That's kind of how it was.
That would be
stripes, something like that. Exactly.
That would be
but that's the army that Nelson has. He's got a couple of pretty good brigade guys in Manson and Croft, but he's got green troops. And he's also going into a situation. He knows he's going to fight defensively here, but he's also fighting in this heat. He has to march fast. And that's how it's going to go. So August 29th, Nelson is going to telegraph General Horatio Wright. Okay. And this is kind of funny because he screws this up, and his message to Wright simply says, "I think Smith is going towards Buell and not Richmond," which I don't know how we figure that one out, but that's the message he mentioned that. And the funny part about it is at that very moment, while he's probably typing away, okay, the vanguard of Smith's infantry, 3,500 guys, is arriving at Big Hill, which is just south of Richmond, the site of that cavalry skirmish on the 23rd. So he wasn't ready, even though he got the army together quick. John Scott's rebel cavalry is going to hit that Manson's picket line about 5 miles from Richmond in that heat. They're going to fight in that brutal summer heat. Even Kirby Smith later after the war will say that this march, this Richmond campaign, it was ragged, barefoot, and starved. I never saw such suffering from an army. That's a quote he had.
Yeah.
So he's having a tough time. Maitland Manson's brigade, he's going to be in position about 15 miles north of Big Hill and 2 miles south of Richmond, Kentucky. So they're getting there.
Yeah.
Charles Cross brigade is located a little further north in a cemetery called the Richmond Cemetery. Meanwhile, Union Cavalry Commander Leonidas Metcalf, that 7th Kentucky guy who got his butt handed to him, he's reporting that he's seeing large numbers of rebels moving towards Richmond. So now Nelson and Manson know they're coming. They're coming. So Manson responds by putting his troops on a ridge near the Mount Zion Church.
Yeah.
And this is south of the Rogersville Crossroads, 5 miles south of Richmond. And this is really where the lion's share of the Battle of Richmond, Kentucky is going to take place.
Yeah. Also on the 29th, though, you have, Claiborne hearing around 5 o'clock, he hears artillery, and he calls his men together and has them form a line of battle. And he said one thing that happened was that I had scarcely dismissed them before firing and yelling was heard at our front. And almost simultaneously, a multitude of stragglers consisting of Colonel Scott's cavalry brigade, sick men, baggage wagon, servants, leading horses came flying through in the utmost consternation, closely pursued by the whole of Metcalf's command of U.S. cavalry. So what does Claiborne do? He gets men from the 48th Tennessee who are part of the sharpshooters that he has put together after Shiloh, and they wait till they're within 25 yards and they fire on them and they drive them away. So that is also some of the skirmishing that is going to take place on the 29th. And then Claiborne again sends his sharpshooters forward as some of the Federals approach him. And then the Federals retreat. And that's when they go back. And that's when Manson sets them up along that Zion, just 4 regiments just south of the Zion Church. Right. So he's got 3 regiments on the east side of the Old State Road and 1 on the west side of the Old State Road. And that's where we go into August 30th, which is, or as you said, that a lot of this fighting takes place at the Battle of Richmond.
Well, Manson's got a pretty good army, though, you mentioned. So he's got about 6,500 guys this time.
Yeah.
He's got, all those regiments you mentioned, the 69th Indiana, which is the German guys under Herman Croft. Then on the east, those the west side. On the east guys, you got the 55th, the 71st, and the 16th Indiana with those 4 artillery pieces. So just imagine a road going north, and the army is going to be straddling both sides of it. At least that's how it's ultimately going to be. And they want to defend that position of the Rebs coming north up that Old State Road. And once darkness falls on the 29th, Manson is going to send an order to Charles Croft and that cemetery to haul ass and get there. And so by 4 o'clock in the morning on the 30th, Manson's brigade is, for the most part, going to get set up. Now, here's the thing. It's 4 o'clock in the morning on the 30th. His guys are making breakfast, okay? I don't know if they're having a Berridge McMuffin or not, but that's what they're doing, right? But they're having breakfast, and the Rebs start to arrive, and it's misty, and it's hazy. They're going to start to arrive through the mist coming north on that Old State Road, straddling both sides of the road from the south. Now, Patrick Claiborne's division, as you mentioned, is going to be in the lead of the first to arrive. Now, these guys, unlike the Union guys, which are green for the most part. These are hard-fighting, battle-tested guys who fought at places like friggin' Shiloh.
Yeah.
These are Tennessee guys, Arkansas guys, brutal, brutal guys. Now, the 1st Brigade under Claiborne that's going to get there is going to be from Benjamin Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Benjamin Hill, the Lee Brigade, the 13th and 15th Arkansas, 2nd and 5th Tennessee, and that James Douglas Battery. They're going to be coming up, followed behind them, and that second wave is going to be Preston Smith's Brigade of Tennesseans. This is the 12th and the 47th, the 13th, and the 154th, the senior regiment, they called them, because they were formed in 1842. Just they call them the senior regiment. So that was a cool thing. So, and then coming up behind them to the southwest, on the west side of the old state road, is Thomas Churchill's division. Mm-hmm. So a lot of guys are coming. Now, Manson, he mentions, to Croft, the hell, hurry, you better get here. He's got those 4 regiments that you talked about, and they're in battle formation on that old state turnpike. Now, Claiborne, he's ready to go. He's friggin' ready, right? You can imagine
always is.
Got his Lucky Charms, his Jameson. He's
he said his Lucky Charms for breakfast.
But at 7:30 in the morning, Kirby Smith says, "Slow down, Leprechaun. Stop right there. We're not ready yet." He stops him. He holds him up because he wants to wait until Churchill's division catches up, because he's a little bit behind. So because what he wants to do is Churchill on the left side of the old state road coming north, simultaneous with Claiborne, kind of both coming up at the same time, kind of straddling that old state road, pushing against the Mount Zion Church ridgeline of that Rogersville. That's where he wants to hit. So they sit around till noontime, right? Noontime, Churchill's finally in place, and he sends his brigades under a guy named Thomas McCrae to the west of that turnpike. These are Texans and Arkansas guys, tough guys. And what's interesting is they're going to be advancing through a valley, and the way the ground was, the left side of that road had I don't know what you want to call it,
it was a ravine,
a pitch, but they couldn't be seen.
They couldn't see them.
So they're moving around to the Union right, and for the most part, they can't be seen, heading towards that Mount Zion Church. The undulation is clearly MVP here, Mary. I'll tell you right now, this battle.
The rolling hill.
It certainly was, because Manson, he could look and he could see Claiborne's men east of that road.
Yeah,
but he was blind to Churchill being on the west of it. So to prepare, and this is where he screws this up, and you can't really blame him. But to prepare for Claiborne, he's going to take a lot of his troops that were on the west side of the road and move them to his left flank.
Yep.
And he's going to load up the Union left flank and weaken the Union right flank, because he doesn't see any soldiers coming at that right flank. He wants to strengthen that side of the line because he sees Claiborne. He knows Claiborne.
Well, there's already a bit of artillery exchange happening at this time as well. And they're starting, and he thinks like, shit, I'm going to be weakened. So I've got to pull troops.
So you just picture his line. The Union right is, for the most part, a skeleton crew, right?
Yeah.
The Union left is strong. But Claiborne, he sees what's going on too. And he's like, well, so he's going to move his troops further east as well. So it's kind of like, like Gettysburg and Little Round Top. They keep trying to go around each other.
Yeah.
So they're going to go further east to counter that Manson's movement to the Union left, including Preston Smith's entire friggin' brigade. He's going to move the entire brigade there to overlap and flank Manson. And then they're going to start fall. They're going to get into that pitched battle where unfortunately, Patrick Claiborne is going to be a short timer on this one.
Yeah, he is. And that's because, so right before this attack happens, Patrick Claiborne sees his friend Lucius Polk, who is the nephew of General Leonidas Polk, and he's wounded and he's being taken off the battlefield. So Claiborne goes over to see if he's okay. And it is a pretty severe wound, but he will live, obviously. When Claiborne finds out he's going to be okay, he turns to say something to his men, and his head all of a sudden just jerks to the right, like really violently. And his men were like, oh shit, Jesus, he's going to die. Next thing you know, like a bullet falls out of his mouth. He's been shot through his left cheek. It takes out between 2 and 5 teeth, apparently. But he's like, when they see he's okay, and then Pat Claiborne kind of gives a like, no, I got this. It's okay. Claiborne later would say that he basically caught the mini ball in his mouth and spit it out.
But it messed his teeth. It affected his voice so badly. Only the sounds of Mary rock and roll karaoke sounded worse than him trying to talk at that very moment. but he's spitting out his teeth.
God.
He's spitting out the bullet. But the troops think he's gone up the spout. They think he got shot in the face.
Yeah,
He's
but
gone.
then he's like, no, I'm fine. And he keeps trying to command. And karaoke going, Jesus. Anyway, it gets to the point where the swelling and blood like makes it so that he can't talk. Someone's got to say to him, dude, you need to vacate the dance floor. You can't command anymore. So he has to leave to go get taken care of. And he's going to be a few weeks before he can actually talk again properly. And even after that, I mean, you lose like 4 or 5 teeth, you probably are going to sound a little bit strange.
Yeah, but it's a horrific injury. I mean, it really, really is. We joke
Yeah.
about it, but that was one that could have changed a lot of history on the Confederate side. Preston Smith is going to ultimately have to take over the division. So on that rebel left, west of the old state road now, here comes Thomas McCrae's brigade under Churchill, right? They're moving up completely undetected towards that Union line on their right flank, completely unbeknownst to Croft, Manson, Rosewood's clown, anybody. Nobody can see him. So McCrae's brigade is going to begin to attack. He's going to start with an artillery under a guy named John Humphrey. So Croft, at this time, he's just getting set up. He just arrived in that Richmond cemetery, and he's setting up that Union left after getting there. He has no idea that McCrae's Texans in Arkansas are about to hit them. He's just not ready. John T. Humphrey's artillery opens up on him. Right off the bat, the 95th Ohio gets absolutely pounded right off the bat. This is William McMillan's regiment. They just get completely wasted. And this is going on while Claiborne's doing his thing to get around that Union left. So the battle is attacking at the same time, exactly what Kirby Smith wanted. Just after noon, Manson, he's going to get a message from William Bull Nelson. And this is typical. He gets a message and he says, hey, just so you know, don't bring on a general engagement. And he's like, well, what the hell? I'm already
sorry.
I mean, that's a little late, right? I used this information 2 hours ago. He goes, why don't you fall back to Lancaster, Kentucky? And he's like, well, this is too late. He can't do it. So they're getting really hit hard because the numbers are telling the story, and Croft not being able to see McCrae's guys really, really put them, as well as the fact that Manson put a lot of the troops on the Union left at that time. So the line's completely falling apart. I mean, the line is falling apart faster than the Indians in the postseason, Mary. That's how quickly that's going badly. They're running, they're retreating back in a mass panic. So just imagine, again, at the same time, Second Manassas is going on. This is going on. So things aren't going, this is a bad day for Mother here for the Union overall, right?
They're having to vacate the dance floor, both the Eastern and the Western theaters.
So Croft, he's got his 12th and 66 Indiana fall back. They're all running. They're in a full retreat. He has them set up a defensive line. It is right in front of a place called Castlewood. Castlewood is the Kentucky State Senator's home of a guy named Richard White. He wants to set up another defensive line to basically allow the troops to kind of get the hell out of Dodge. Right about now, at the very moment, here comes Bull Nelson finally arriving.
Like, can you imagine him riding in, all 300 pounds of him, 6'2" on his fucking horse?
I mean, riding on a horse with no legs. That's probably what it would have been when he got there, 300 pounds. So the funny part about it is he gets there.
Been through the desert on a horse with no legs.
Yeah, well, and the Union troops are cheering his arrival. Yeah, the guy is here. By now, they got about less than 4,000 guys left. They don't have a lot of people to deal with. So, Bull Nelson, he's trying to keep them under control. He's trying to be orderly. The Rebs keep coming, though. They don't stop. They keep pushing forward. McCrae in that rebel left and Smith now on that rebel right. Mm-hmm. They're going to keep moving and moving and moving. So by 2:30, Nelson, he sees a situation for what it is. And he says, let's get the friggin' hell out of here.
Yeah.
So he orders a full retreat back to Richmond, which is 4 miles north of where they were at that time. They're still being chased by the Confederates. So it's not like they're letting them go. They're chasing them down.
Yeah.
He's going to set up one last defensive line back at that Richmond cemetery where Croft was at the beginning. And Nelson's trying to rally his troops. Who knows what he's doing? But he's trying to get everybody going. The Rebs are going to launch one final attack at this point.
Yeah.
They got 5,000 guys, 3 brigades. It's basically a 2-to-1 ratio they have on the Union. The Union has a defensive line in the cemetery. Many of the guys are hiding behind the gravestones as defense. And the volleys are going back and forth. The Confederates fire a volley, and the Union fires a volley. And then a really cool moment happens for the Confederates that happens. It's kind of a stalemate. And looking to rally the troops, there's a rebel general from France. We don't see too many French guys on the Confederate side, okay? His name is Prince Camille Armand Jules Marie de Polignac. There you go, right there. That's his name, okay? And he's riding with Kirby Smith's army. And he grabs the flag of the 5th Tennessee, and he basically says, creme brulee for everybody, follow me. So he grabs
I can hear the music from Man in the Iron Mask playing in my head right now.
He does. He grabs the flag and says, follow me. He runs in. All 5,000 Rebs follow him and charge into the cemetery. All of them. And the Union line just has that complete pucker moment. And they go, whoa, nope. So they're going to try to completely run back towards Richmond. Little do they know that John Scott's cavalry has already surrounded Richmond so they can cut off all the escape routes
exactly,
because they don't want them getting caught. 4,500 Union guys are going to get bagged here. They're going to get caught trying to escape from the cemetery from this charge by this French general supported by John Scott's cavalry. So Croft and Nelson ironically escape. I don't know how the hell Nelson escapes. That's like the kid in dodgeball surviving. I don't know how that happened. But Manson is going to get captured and he's going to get caught. Now, what will happen as this goes forward is a complete and utter disaster for the Union.
Yeah, it is. And it's so when all those troops get captured, and it's 4,300 of them that get captured, Kirby Smith goes to his cavalry guy and says, okay, how many did you get? And Smith is just like, am I getting his last name right? It's Smith, right? I'm having a
Kirby
moment.
Smith?
No, Kirby Smith. Yeah, Kirby Smith goes to the cavalry guy who is
John Scott.
John Scott, thank you.
Wow.
Just sorry, I had a moment. Okay, so let me start that over again. So when Scott captures the 4,300 Union guys, Kirby Smith comes to him and says, how many do you have? And he doesn't have an exact number. And Scott just says, I have a field full. And that's where he's got them. He's got them in this field where they make this like makeshift stockade for them all to be. And he can't give him an exact number. So he's just like, I got a field for you kind of thing, just something along those lines. But yeah, this is an absolute disaster for the Union. It is one of the most total Confederate victories in the Civil War. And it never gets talked about.
Well, it's definitely the most lopsided. I mean, this was
lopsided.
This was an absolute astrogliding to the first order as far as a battle goes. Now, you want to look at some of these casualty numbers. I know you like hearing this. So the Union guys, okay, they start with about 68,000, 7,000 guys. They're gonna end up with 5,300 casualties. 4,300 are going to be captured. So that's a big day. On the Confederate side, they only have 450 casualties out of 6,500. So there was a lot of battling going on, but there was a lot of running. And Kirby Smith is going to score a gigantic victory here. Without a doubt, he's going to earn a promotion to lieutenant general out of this. He's going to be awarded what's called the Thanks of Congress from the Confederate Congress on the 17th of February 1864 for his actions at Richmond. And he's ultimately going to command the 3rd Corps in the Army of Tennessee going forward. So if you're looking at a complete and utter slam dunk victory, black and white win, it's Richmond, Kentucky for the Confederacy. And it was a time that if you're Abraham Lincoln, it could not have come at a worse time, because don't forget too, this is coming off of, he's getting these telegrams from what's going on here from Bull Nelson. And also at the same time, he's getting messages from John Pope over in Manassas, right? Of what's going on. Pretty much. And that and you realize the pressure, we talked before in other episodes, the ballsy call of putting McClellan in charge at this moment. This was the environment that he had to make that decision in, where you have got complete disaster. You've been dealing with good news in the West. You've dealt with U.S. grants, in Shiloh. Now you've got this. Now you think you probably lost Kentucky again, and you did not want, like I said before.
And he can't lose Kentucky. He can't.
And so
he has to hold
he's
Kentucky.
facing the specter of a loss in Kentucky after everything that Grant had done, and now a factor of losing a battle in Virginia. And now, Lee is going into Maryland. And so in 1862, the summer of 62 in August, you realize how close it was. And like we said before, how important later Sharpsburg was, the Battle of Antietam,
Yeah.
because it was in this environment psychologically, militarily, and politically this was what was going on. So what makes Richmond important isn't so much the numbers, because it's relatively a small battle in comparison to some of the big boys. But what it does, it is an absolute hammer versus a nail situation for the Confederacy, coupled with Manassas, the Second Manassas, which was another hammer nail for the Confederacy win. So it puts all the pressure on Lincoln and the administration going into the fall of 1862 to help preserve the Union, because don't forget, he wants to do the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah.
And there's no way now he can do it. So you realize how important these later battles were. So that's that.
Yeah. So it's not, I think a lot, I think when you look at it, it might just seem like, oh, it's all just hinging on what happened at Manassas, but no, it's not. Like, you got to know that Lincoln knows what is happening at Richmond, right? So I think you have to take that into consideration when you're looking at why he reinstates McClellan as the commander. The other thing that happens too is, Frankfort falls to Confederate troops, and it's the only federal state capital to fall during the entire war. Like, that happens too. And that is right before, that's about, like 18 days before Antietam happens, about 2 weeks before South Mountain,
2 weeks before. And that's why.
Just like that. And this is all the shit that is happening. It's not just Second Manassas that is on Lincoln's shoulders here. It is this, you've got this Union capital that has fallen, and it's going to be the only one in the Civil War as well. But ultimately, this campaign in Kentucky, it's not going to be a great thing in the long term for the Confederacy. Like, Bragg doesn't get to recruit those troops that he wants to recruit at all. So those wagons full of guns that he sent, they don't get anybody, because I think they realized that the further they got into Kentucky, especially when they're in the bluegrass region, they're like, they don't want us here, and they don't want to be part of this shit. Like, they're not going to join us. It wasn't like in Missouri, where I think it was a bigger threat that you had all these people all of a sudden joining the Confederates to fight against them that had been neutral before. That didn't happen in Kentucky. So it's there's a very different type of thing going on there than what we saw in Missouri, I think.
No, there's no question. So MVPs of this one, Mary, what do you think?
I think the MVPs, so, besides the obvious Patrick Cleburne, I'm also going to have to go with Churchill as well with him.
Okay.
With what he does down in Churchill, what becomes known as Churchill Draw, that, the two of them are able to just keep driving them back and back and back. I don't know that there's really a Union MVP. Honestly,
no, there really isn't.
But I think besides the obvious, I think to Patrick Cleburne, definitely he would be the number one I would think of, because when you look back to him at Shiloh, when he got completely pounded on that second day, and he recognized that afterwards, if he'd had sharpshooters to fire at the artillery, to fire at the skirmishers that he was facing, that he might have been able to gain more ground, or not be things might not have gone as bad as what they were. So what does he do after Shiloh? He trains quite a few of his men to be sharpshooters. And what does he do at Battle of Richmond? He utilizes them in the way that he wanted to at Shiloh. He does that on the 29th, and he uses them again on the 30th. But especially on the 29th, he's able to drive them back. And he does what he couldn't do at Shiloh. And I think that's one reason to give him the MVP. But Churchill, too, for getting down in that ravine and just being able to, surprise the hell.
I'd say no question.
How about for you? Who's your MVP?
Well, I think I have to give it to my Frenchman, if anything, just to say his name again. Prince Camille Armand Jules Marie de Polignac. That's who my MVP is, Mary. Anybody with that name deserves the MVP. But for the Union side, it's really, really tough to say because you know what? There are so many mistakes that were made. I mean, Marlon Manson did the best job he could overall.
Yeah.
Croft was late to get there. Nelson screwed up the initial orders. He got there late. So Marlon Manson, I guess we'll go with him. But I think at the end of the day, it's kind of tough to find an MVP of this one on the Union side because it was so utterly dominating for the Confederacy. It just was. It just was.
Yeah. No, but you had, I think here you have tried and tested troops in Claiborne's men and probably in Preston Smith's too. And the Union troops are all green. You know, you're going up against a guy who, like Claiborne, is becoming quite a rising star by this point. You know, he's really starting to prove himself. You know, I don't think they had a chance against him, especially when they're green troops.
They didn't. You know? They didn't. So anyway, what's next?
Next for us, we are going to go back to actually the Eastern Theater, and we are going to be going back to Second Manassas, and we're going to be talking Bronner's Farm.
We'll be adding iron to our diet then, Mary.
We definitely will be.
About Battle of Bronner's Farm. You know what that means, Iron Brigade. So that'll be a great time talking about that again. Battle Second Manassas site's a great place to go. We'll have a lot of fun talking about that. So we have our roundtable tomorrow. By the time this drops, it'll already be in the book. So hopefully it was a good one.
Yep.
We'll have our live again on Saturday, and we'll prepare for Bronner's Farm next Tuesday.
Yep.
So good discussion. Not a lot of people talk about Richmond, Kentucky.
No,
most people don't realize there even was a Battle of Richmond, Kentucky, unfortunately, because it's one of those obscure ones. But I think, to your point, like you said earlier, that all battles matter. And this is one that did have strategic and psychological importance, specifically at the time for the Confederacy and the Union. So it's definitely worth a good discussion. I think people need to study these battles because, as we say, they all lead to bigger and better things. And understanding this one is a great way to understand the future action that took place in that part of the country in this war.
And I think I think we will be discussing more campaigns in the area of Kentucky, in the Kentucky campaign, because it doesn't just stop with Richmond. You have other stuff going on, like, October 8th, you have the Battle of Perryville, which is it's a federal victory. And then, you have it basically it does not turn out well for the Confederates. It does not turn out how Braxton Bragg wanted it to, which was taking back Kentucky and all of that. And he basically ends up back where he started.
Nope, that's where it was. They'll go back to the beginning again with that. So anyway, I guess we could sign up for this one. So a good episode for you. So always good to talk about some different people, guys like Marlon Manson and Thomas Churchill and guys like that. A lot of these guys who don't get the publicity they probably deserve to get. So off we go to Bronner's Farm. We're heading back to Manassas, Virginia next week, where it's going to be hot, miserable, as we talk about Bronner's Farm.
Sounds like your entire life right now.
It's going to be hot and miserable and last for the rest of your life. Anyway, Mary, it was a good talk. As I say many times, the pleasure, of course, was all yours.
Oh, I know.
And we will look forward to talking to you soon. So, Mary, off we go. Looking forward to the next one. And episode 53 is in the books, and we head back east to Second Manassas, talk about Bronner's. And I am looking forward to talking about that because it is one of my favorite parts of that battle. So off we go.
So thank you to all our listeners for supporting us for these now 53 episodes. We really appreciate it. Hope you are enjoying this journey with us. We've been at this now for over a year. So thank you, Darren, for sticking by me for over a year of doing this with me with my usual Tuesday moods and stuff.
Just touch and go.
Although Darren in the heat is a little bit like Mary on Tuesday.
Oh my goodness gracious. But it is what it is. So off we go. So I'm going to go find some air conditioning. Mary, have a great night. Everyone have a great hope you have a great weekend as you listen to this, and we look forward to talking to you on the other side.
Okay. See you guys later.
Peace out.
Bye guys.